sleeps, pal.
Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Pat FinTech, the training partner that demystifies fintech and digital finance for financial services professionals. On the show this week, we've got Cian Prendergast.
I'm Cian Prendergast, CEO of Ortus.
Sharing his story on how there's a lot more to providing cloud and managed IT services to small to medium-sized Irish businesses than what you'd expect at face value. We also dig into Cian's trigger point for launching Ortus in 2007, the parallels between launching during a recession and rapid growth during a pandemic, and the impact of looking after your community as an entrepreneur. All right here on Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
One of the things I saw there, what's in a name, right? Ortus.
It was supposed to be called Source IT, except the company registration office said there's already a company called Resource HR. So I got in a big fight with them because it's two different words. And I didn't realize there's only two people working in that whole place. I wouldn't have done it if I'd have known that. So I went back and asked for every single name you can think of, and they said no straight away. I did some research about other words, foreign words for the name Source, and the Latin for source is Ortus.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Ooh,
Ortus
yes.
technology. So we ended up calling it Ortus technology, which is why it still flows off the tongue, even though we're not called that anymore, just Ortus.
Very good. Anyway, listen, I've gone through your LinkedIn profile, but obviously a LinkedIn profile is a LinkedIn profile. Maybe you could just share your backstory with us, how you got to this point, connecting the dots from your time with Eurosoft and Softtech to the trigger point for founding Ortus in 2007, yeah?
Yeah, so I guess I struggled a lot in school, and I had a colourful history of schools. I went to several secondary schools. I was dyslexic, so I just always struggled with it. The only thing I could ever do, which wasn't in the curriculum at the time, was computers. And I got into computers because my mother taught special needs, and the only way they could communicate was through computers. So it wasn't considered a career, but when I realised it was, after school and after all my friends had been to college, when I was working on building sites and bars, I did a course for a year and liked it and got a placement in a company called Eurosoft, installing till systems. And yeah, I liked it, but I wanted something more. So I asked, could we do servers and PCs as well as the till system and the software? And he said yes. So started configuring that myself. I didn't have anyone to turn to. I just had to get it working. There was no remote access back in those days. There wasn't really internet. There was kind of internet, you know, that 56K dial-up, if anyone knows what that is.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Oh,
I've heard of it.
So yeah, I went on to work in Softtech then, more account management. And really, I guess I'm a failed techie. I'm not a techie myself. I recognize good techies, and I guess I bring them to clients and I facilitate that. And I've always seen my job is to facilitate the relationship between the clients and the techies. And I enjoyed my time in those companies, but I always wanted to do things my own way. I always found that IT support was fundamentally flawed in the way it was done. This kind of people answering the phone, never too humble. There was a lack of empathy I always felt in the way support was done. So I tried to do it differently, tried to make it a bit more people-centered. I tried to train people how to deal with the person instead of just the technical problem. And I think that's reflected in the relationships we have with our clients and artists today.
Interesting. Yeah, I always feel like an idiot when I called support back in the 90s and 2000s, right? Like you said, there wasn't a very humble nature about the people on the other end.
No, and that's the key word. Like there's only three things we look for in an interview. We don't ask what you did in college. You know, we don't ask whether or not you have a degree. We just try and figure out three things. Is this person humble, hungry, and smart? Nothing else. There's no script.
When you think about the business itself and founding it in 2007, what was that trigger point, the impetus, right, that said, I'm going to go do that?
If I'm being totally honest, I just didn't like the way anyone else was doing it. And I found it more stressful to work for other people who I felt were doing it wrong than to work for myself. As petrifying as it was, looking down the barrel of a recession, I found it more stressful and I was more anxious doing it someone else's way that I felt was wrong. And I just felt that my way of doing it was going to be right. And that was the trigger point for me. Maybe I'm just difficult. Maybe I just found it hard to work for people. I don't find it hard to work with people. And I know our staff retention is second to none. So I know I'm okay that way. I guess my issue was probably that I just, if I disagreed with the way people were doing it, I wanted to do it my own way. And that has probably spurred me into life and made me do it.
I'm with you. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been known to be like that myself.
I consider myself a terrible employee. I'd be far better by myself.
It's probably in a nutshell. Maybe I was a terrible employee. I made lots of sales and I got on well with clients. That were never my problem. It was usually the hierarchy and this notion that there was some people sitting upstairs making decisions that weren't actually connected with the clients. And no offense to them if they ever hear this, but I felt I was the one that was connected to the clients. And if you get frustrated, if you feel like people that aren't connected with the clients are telling you how the whole company should do it.
Yeah.
So all of this, and then driving that into the launch of a business in 2007, very tough time to launch a business. Right? It's like launching a business in the year 2020 almost, yeah. Right? What were those first 6 to 12 months like when you launched the business?
I kind of did it a different way. I saved up enough money to do it that I knew I could pay myself for 6 months. And I knew I would generate some money in that 6 months. And then the question was, could I generate enough to keep me going for a second 6 months? So I went from a position where I could have been a director of an IT company to moving into my shed and fixing laptops for the elderly, while I was trying to build a business, having saved up for 6 months with a handful of clients and a phone and a laptop. And I just made calls. I had a friend that was out of work, Belinda, and she made calls for me and booked appointments. And I realized we were coming into a recession, I was petrified, but we had traction. People liked our message when we visited them. We were totally going down the route of cloud computing. If you think about that in a recession time, do you want to spend 20 grand on a server or do you want to give me 500 euros? And for that 500 euros, I'll put your stuff in the cloud. You got a monthly bill at a time that leasing companies didn't want to lease. So I didn't have the upstairs people that needed vast salaries. I just had myself and I worked out what my minimum survival money was. I made sure the person, Belinda, working for me got paid. And then I had an encounter with someone who I played tennis with, who claimed to be an IT guru. His words to me were, "You're Cian Prendergast." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're the computer person." And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "There's nothing about computers I don't know." And I thought to myself, what a bold statement. So his name is Dave Brophy, and he's our technical director now. He was a technical director in his mid-20s, simply because he was the first employee, but he's still the best techie I've ever met. A combination of the two of us. I told you, I consider myself a failed techie. I consider myself the facilitator between techies and clients. And I guess he was the architecture behind what I was trying to do, what my vision was. He was making it happen technically, which was great. And the combination of the two of us is great. Always has been. It's set the bedrock for us. But yeah, very scary times and a very scary thing to do. But I think we just hit it at maybe the perfect set of circumstances. Lots of lessons learned, though, from surviving a recession.
Absolutely. And was there a mission or vision at the start that really brought you guys together and enabled you to keep things going in the right direction over the past 14 years now?
I guess we tried to predict the future. My vision of the future was that it was built around remote working and it was built around having a business where you had a monthly recurring revenue. And my vision always was that at some point, the profit from the monthly recurring revenue would exceed the company's costs. So I've been trying to do that for however many years. That's been, 12, 13 years. And we achieved it about 2 months ago.
Really? Congratulations. Yeah, monthly recurring revenue was something that I really got my head around quite a bit in the last 5 years. So I know what you're talking about. And so tell us about the business today, how it operates, and what's changed really since you started.
Well, I guess to make ourselves recession-proof, I asked myself the question. I told you we tried to predict the future with remote working and cloud computing. We also tried to predict what was going to be recession-proof. And what I noticed is the busiest companies back then when I visited them, and the ones that seemed to have a better budget, were ones in the accountancy world, legal world, and healthcare. And also I did some research, did a lot of R&D, always have had research on what we're going to do next. And our research told us that the fact that people were going to live so much longer was going to become epidemic. And healthcare didn't have any IT. I mean, a lot of these people had folders and pens and jotters beside their computers. So it was a good time to get into them. I think now we're the biggest IT healthcare, MSP in Ireland. Home care, we've got 2 of the top 3 home care companies in Ireland. We're the biggest. We've expanded that into Europe. And, when this pandemic kicked in, we noticed our own client base, each of our clients had growth. Our clients actually grew. Not the amount of clients we had, that grew too, but the size of each client grew during this. So now what Ortus looks like is, I'm no longer in my shed. There's 35 of us. We have 4 offices. We've got 2 offices in Laois. We've got an office in Cork, an office in Dublin. There's 35 of us. We've got a really good structure. We've got a really good leadership team. We've got a really good ethos. We have traction. We have a very small sales team, and we work under the radar. People come to us basically when something breaks and they get speaking to someone else and they say, we're in the shit here. What should we do? And someone says, you should try these guys, whether it's a software company they know, or whether it's their accountant, or someone that they just know through business circles or business networking. We've always had a queue at the door. The question is how to grow responsibly without falling apart. And I guess really clearly defined roles and departments and leadership chains of command have really helped with that.
And do you think your experience of growing the business through a recession back then helped position you for what's happened in the last 12 months?
Yes, I think we were ready for it. I'd seen it before, I'd done it before, and I thought our way through it. I literally sat down and thought, like when everyone else is watching TV, I'm just thinking. When everyone else is sleeping, I'm probably just thinking as well. And I'm trying to think what happens next. So we had 3 meetings a day. We were analysing what we call our seat count, and we were looking to see where's the seat count dropping. We had leadership meetings 3 times a day to analyse that. And, we just decided to be brave and stick it out and work hard. Calls doubled, the length of each call trebled. I mean, if you imagine if you have 300 clients in a managed environment with a managed network and managed internet connections, and there's 20 or 30 people in each of those businesses, when they all go home, you've got 20 or 30 times the amount of internet connection problems. So it was a disaster, but we were ready for it. It's almost like we had planned for it. We had planned for something. I think we had planned for everyone needing remote access instantly. We didn't actually plan for it. Pandemic, but we planned for the raw ingredients, not knowing that's what we were planning for. Just when it happened, we were ready.
Okay.
Wow. I've talked to a few folks about this, about everybody going home, right? And that it's the IT network manager's worst nightmare from a cybersecurity perspective is that all of a sudden, instead of having everybody connecting from a homogeneous connection through an office, you now have all these different spider webs of connectivity happening that naturally will increase the risk of whatever you want to point to from a cyber perspective. Is that true? Right? I've talked to a few people about this and just trying to get my head around that.
It's true if you half-ass do it. Like if you just open up the door, it's like, right, the front door is closed in your house, but you're going to leave the back door open. How long are you going to get away with it for? Now, if everyone does it at the exact same time, how long are you going to get away with it for? So everyone was saying you can work over any device, anywhere, any internet connection. Loads of these, inverted commas, cloud specialist companies were doing that. But the reality is the door was wide open. The amount of sites that we've taken over that had serious issues in relation to that is scary. And how little they knew about it was scary. You have to have an end-to-end locked down solution. Is it slightly inconvenient? To have to press accept on your phone if you're accessing the network from a new location? Yes. Is it slightly inconvenient to make sure that everyone's using a company device and have your network configured that only specific devices can access it and have it locked down from end to end? It's an easy thing to do. The difference in cost is about 10 to 15 euros per user per month to have a completely locked down system. That's all.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's worth it.
And everyone's got this wide open. My stuff works from everywhere, and it's great and it's really easy. But that's super until you get hit with something and you've got a data breach and you have to report it. And we know what's going on in the world, particularly in Europe, and with that at the moment, and with GDPR. But I mean, everyone's going to get a data breach. If you don't have the systems in place and you get that questionnaire, you're going to fail it. Most of the sites we inherit, the 26 questions the Data Protection Commission ask, most of the sites would probably fail on 8 that we inherit. Our own sites would get almost full scores. And you just got to keep them aligned and keep going back to them and keep telling them what's changed. Most of the work we do from that point onwards, I call alignment. If you keep those sites aligned, they'll always be safe. But it's a huge risk at the moment, and there's people capitalizing on it. We won't name countries, but there are companies allowed to operate in certain countries that pretty much have permanent pensionable jobs, people sitting around boardroom tables deciding how to send out viruses and then extort money out of companies. It's unbelievable stuff that it's allowed to happen, but you can protect yourself from it. Just get the right company to do it.
This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Pat FinTech, demystifying fintech and digital finance for financial services professionals. Pat FinTech enable financial services professionals to transform their capabilities into the digital age with dedicated virtual training programs geared towards those that can develop, deliver, and monitor optimally customized user experiences balanced by appropriate governance, control, and oversight. To learn more about Pat FinTech, go to moneyneversleeps.ie/PAT-FinTech. I think I saw on your website, Cian, that, basically, hey, we're your IT department. We're your IT team, right? Being able to build up a significant base of clients through the beginning of 2020, taking the approach that you have of being true to your clients, right? And generating out of that a significant ongoing trend of word of mouth spreading of the Ortus name. And that, listen, healthcare, legal, accountancy, all have friends in healthcare, legal, and accountancy, and spreading the word, right? And doing all that. So when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden you're helping all of your current clients get into this new working environment, right? But then this onslaught of new business that came to you, how did you guys manage that?
We turned some of it down if we felt like they didn't have the same mentality as us. How did we manage it? Well, the first thing we did when the pandemic kicked in was we realized our calls were going through the roof and everyone was very stressed and everyone was working too hard. The first thing we did is give everyone a pay rise across the board. When I made the announcement, I think people thought there was going to be layoffs or something. The first thing we did was get goodwill and good spirit inside. We hired the services of a life coach, psychologist person who could help people if they felt stressed. And we offered to assist people with their requirement for childcare in any way we could. So the first thing we did is build goodwill. The second thing we did was we looked at the opportunities that we had. Now, first of all, we lost about 4 projects immediately. I can't name the names of them for obvious reasons. They'd signed contracts. We let them, away with having a signed contract and not proceeding because we totally understood. So the first thing we did then was to look at the opportunities we did have and roll them out one at a time. And the ones that were queuing up for us that didn't have the same mentality as us, that didn't want it working properly. I mean, our underneath our logo, it says, where IT just works. Now, if you say that, you're going to get beaten over the head with it at every opportunity. So if you put something like that under your logo, you got to stand up to that and you got to own it and you got to really deliver on it. So anyone that we felt didn't really want that and just wanted something slightly better than what they had, we said, you're not for us. The other ones, we onboarded them all one at a time. What we do when we onboard them is we make it stick. We leave the project engineer there for a week or two and we just make it stick and make it work. We visit our clients and we keep them aligned. And for me, it's about doing it. It's not about how fast you can grow. If you try and grow too fast in this industry, you'll fail, you'll collapse, you'll implode. There'll be the noise levels throughout the whole company will bring you down. So for us, it's about just doing it slowly and responsibly. Some people say I'm a bit defensive as a coach that way, where I don't want to take on too much. But I've just seen it before in other companies. When you take on too much, the level drops so dramatically that you start losing it out the other end. And we're also saying internally, we want it to be a great place to work. It's not a great place to work if you work everyone to the bone. That it's toxic. So we avoid that and we listen to our team. When our team knocks on the door and says, we think there's too many projects, we pull the brakes and we have to cut 1 or 2 of them loose. And it's heartbreaking stuff. Something that could be $5,000 a month or something. It's heartbreaking to do that because you've gone out and fought for that business and won it in a competitive situation. But if it's the right thing to do for your team, you just have to do it. You have to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah, I'm reading a book right now by one of our former guests, Shane Brett, and shout out to Shane. It's called 0 to 10 Million. It's kind of a play on the 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And he said 2 things. One, okay, we're an Irish business. Everybody gets 5 weeks. And he hired salespeople in the U.S. and he said, you guys get 5 weeks too. And that was a shock to them. And it's like, listen, it's kind of just good lifestyle, good living, good health to take a week off a quarter, right? And maybe an extra week during the summer. So that's one thing. Two, like you said, that first big contract you win, that first big deal you win, give everybody a raise, right? I'm only on chapter 4 or 5 right now, but those are my takeaways so far from Shane Brett's 0 to 10 million. So, good to hear that resonating in your experiences as well. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, Cian, was about digital transformation and the people side of digital transformation and helping companies transform to operating in a digital environment is one thing, right? Moving them to cloud, enabling them to have everybody work remotely, being able to do that seamlessly, securely, on a consistent, constant, connected basis is incredibly hard to do. Can you talk about what digital transformation means to you and how specifically you feel about the people side of it?
I think you're right. It's less about the actual technology that you're moving to and more about the buy-in and training and education of the people that are doing it. It's more about the changing the mentality to embrace it. Healthcare is particularly challenging with that. You got people that are fantastic for caring for people, but they weren't brought up in roles that had computers, so they've had to adapt to it. So for me, it's about the buy-in first and foremost, and about the technology that you use secondary. I think also you have to show people, if you want that buy-in, how it helps their life, helps them with their job. So all of a sudden, the kind of thing we do when people migrate to us is we bring in their software vendors and we say, okay, let's look at some of the processes that you have currently. So we bring in experts that we know and tools, and we say, right, let's just take, for example, you're entering a new employee's details on one system, and then you're entering on another, and then you're entering on another. We're like, why are these systems not talking to each other? And then the software vendors would say, well, because no one asked us to. And that's fair enough. They mightn't even know that there's another software package. One of the things we love doing is interviewing some of the team on the ground instead of those people upstairs. And when you find out that they've got duplicate entry across the board and you can show them they don't need to have that anymore, then they go, okay, that saves me time. So you're not a threat. You're not someone that's coming here to replace us with computers. You're actually someone that's going to make us be more efficient and make my life easier. And then you got buy-in. So for me, something like that to get buy-in, or if you've got a director of a business, to keep on referring to the people upstairs, I guess I am one, but
the big man upstairs.
When you can show them, when they're like, oh, right, you're the IT company, so what you do is you send us bills and we have to pay them, and I hate that. And you've gone, right, and you can show them some Power BI dashboard stuff by, again, liaising with these software vendors who are more than happy to do this stuff, and bringing in a Power BI person. And then all of a sudden, she or he can see some actual data that's useful in a nice fancy gauge. Then they're kind of going, okay, so this is why we spend money. And the overall reduction of noise. And people want stuff that just works. And that's the biggest problem with IT, is when it doesn't.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm hearing a lot more about your business than I thought that you were going to share with us tonight, in terms of, you think about cloud services, right? You think about moving people into the cloud and transforming their IT infrastructure. You don't really think too much about optimizing process, right? That goes beyond the infrastructure side of it. That's really impressive to hear, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess we see ourselves that's what we have to do. Like, why are you going to be someone, if it breaks, we put a plaster on it? Where's the value in having a good help desk? There is a value in it. There's no doubt about that. Having a really good help desk, there's a real value in it. But when you can add value, I know it's that old cliche of adding value. When you can actually add value, then you're the virtual CIO for all your clients. So we have a few virtuals, we call them, virtual CIOs that have maybe 40 clients each. And that's the value you have to add. And if you're working in the same sectors and all the same software companies are sticking their head up, just throw in one call to them and say, hey, we've got all these clients in common. Imagine how impressed the clients would be if I can get your software and that software to link together. So we get buy-in from the software companies as well when they realize, you guys are in most of the healthcare companies. So why not try do this? And then go back to the client and show them. When you show a client that you're after pulling these people together and doing that for them, 9 out of 10 would be highly impressed. 1 out of 10 won't care, which is trying. But you got to focus on the 9, maybe 8, but I like to think 9.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Hey, I've lost access to the system. Well, why do you need it? Well, because I got to rekey everything. It's like, why are you rekeying?
Yeah.
Right. And just asking those kinds of questions, I guess, can be quite helpful.
And it's really interesting, especially in the space myself and Peter working in. Everything is focused on process improvement and automation and digitization. And you expect then it's about ultimately removing the person as opposed to your approach of including the people on the ground who are running these processes day to day and understanding it from their point of view about what the job is and feeding that into the process. You naturally assume from the outside that it's all about replacing the people with the IT.
Just giving them the capacity to use their brains, and not do mind-numbing data input stuff. I mean, no one wants to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with all of the conversations we have on this podcast, Owen, with people in fintech and crypto and blockchain, distributed ledger technology, any B2B SaaS company, whatever, what tends to get past us sometimes is the whole segment of an economy that is based on small to medium-sized businesses filled with people that have no grasp of technology and just only use it as part of their day-to-day job, but really don't get too involved with that. And those folks need help.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a big part of it. And I think we've made an effort over the last 6 months or so to have more of these conversations with entrepreneurs that are not the Revoluts of the world. Right. And that you're actually delivering solutions in the community for people. And speaking of that, I think being able to help in the community when you are an entrepreneur, you definitely have the opportunity to probably do that a bit swifter than you would if you were a big corporation. I heard that recently Ortus helped connect residents in a nursing home with video tech, provided tablets to a maternity hospital. Can you tell us the story about that?
I think like everything else, it was probably social media where we saw it. And I guess the hospital in question, all three of my sons were born there. And we saw that the people working in the maternity ward were saying the dads can't see the kids. And also in the other part of the hospital, there was sick people that couldn't see relatives, and same in the nursing home. So yeah, it was just one of those, we can help, why not help? At the time, I think goodwill was what was keeping everyone's spirits alive. I just thought to myself, Jesus, if I was made to sit outside and not see the child after it's born or talk to people who were sick in the hospital, it would be devastating. So we just got a few tablets. It's no big deal. Like, we got a few tablets and we brought them in and we helped them to achieve that. And they're very appreciative. And it was just really nice. It was just something nice to do. I mean, anyone can make money. It's not that difficult to be a decent person sometimes. And yeah, it was, the staff wanted to do it as well. So then we started looking for other things. And then some of the nursing homes, same problem. And we facilitated as best we could, despite the fact that we were busy. But it was okay to be busy then if you were doing that kind of stuff, because it energized everyone. It got us a bit excited and you get a bit of airtime for it. That's not the most important thing. It was just the feel-good factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
a great story.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. One of the things I was also thinking about is that I saw on your LinkedIn profile some pretty powerful words where you said, my job is to listen, support, guide, and provide a platform for my team to grow, to empower them, to teach them, and to be taught by them. How do you live this day in and day out?
I think you probably hire people because you see a part of yourself in them. I think it took me a while to realize that, but there's something I always say that sometimes there's a look in their eye, like they want it badly, they need it, and they just never had the opportunity, and it could be anyone of any age. I tend to hire people a bit like that. And then when you hire people like that, you have two choices. You either bring them in and then tell them what to do. You bring them in, teach them, and then see what they think they should do or how they want to work. I'm okay with two people with the same role, both working differently, if that's how their brain works. So I think if you listen to them, I don't care who comes up with an idea. If it's the last person in the door or if it's the technical director or if it's the CFO, I don't care who comes up with an idea. A good idea is just a good idea. And when someone comes up with an idea and you listen to them and you act on it and you do it, everyone else sees that and starts trying to do the same thing. Of course, sometimes people come up with ideas that are not good ideas, but you can't. And some of them sound crazy, but some of the best stuff we ever did started from what might have appeared to be a crazy idea. But I think empowering people is the key. I've seen people come in as students. Now they're managing 15 people, and to see how they've grown. If I wasn't doing this for a living, I would work with young people who just need a lucky break, who just need a little bit of guidance, because what's in them, you can sense it, regardless of what their qualifications are. You sense that. But What's the point in not nurturing that? What's the point in trying to control it and bark orders at them? Of course, you got processes and policies and all that stuff, but let them grow and do their thing and let them flourish. And it's the best thing you'll ever do and the best thing you'll ever watch.
Absolutely. Do you think a lot of that was inspired by your own experiences in some of the companies you've worked? That idea of the man up on a different floor, not being down at the lower level, understanding how some of the things work?
Maybe, some clients that I had, and I saw how they managed their company, and some really surprising ones. One guy who was running a company, I think it was Punch Shoe Polish. But I just saw he was the nicest man you'd ever meet, yet he had complete and utter control over the whole business, just by being good to everyone and listening to everyone. And so you don't have to be that old school factory owner looking down upon everyone and feeding them a bucket of fish heads every 2 days. You can actually be decent and do it. And they're the people that inspire me when I see people like that they've still got total control over everyone in terms of everyone's working hard for them because they're on the same team. I've probably been inspired by both. I've been inspired by people that I don't want to be like, and I've been inspired by people that I do want to be like. And you can meet them in all walks of life. It doesn't have to be a business owner. It can be a teacher, or it can be someone that works in a shop that you go to. Anyone that just tries to excel at what they do, no matter what it is. The postman, anyone. So I guess I probably try and learn off everyone that I see.
Okay. One of the most effective people that I saw in leadership in my career was one of my very first stops back in the 90s, Owen, when you were still a young lad, absolutely. And Howard Galligan, give him a shout out. He was very good at listening, like you're saying, Cian, but also in asking questions to take an interest, right? And it wasn't always asking questions about the work situation that you brought to him. It was just about you as a person, as an individual, and just getting to know people. And I was always really impressed with the relationships he had or the demeanor that he had with teams of people that were hierarchically 3 or 4 levels below him. And I don't think he ever thought about that. It was just, you're an individual, you're a person, we're working together, let's figure this out, right? Do you find that you're more of a listener, or do you ask a lot of questions, or is it a bit of both?
I ask a lot of questions. I always have. I've never seen the shame in doing that. I don't need to feel like I know everything. Sometimes it's hard to hear what someone is saying if you disagree with it. But what I will always do is I will always reflect. My first instinct mightn't necessarily be my final instinct on something. I'll always go back and dwell on what that person said and why. And if I didn't listen to them properly, I will go back and apologize, no matter who they are, for not listening. But, sometimes when you're trying to deal with a stressful situation and someone's in your ear and you're just trying to get something done and you're not in a listening mood, and it happens we're all moody creatures. So long as you can reflect on that afterwards and be big enough, and that's what being big really is for me, being big enough to go back afterwards and say, sorry, I should have listened. I think I know what you were talking about. There's no point in hiring great people and then not listening to them, telling them what to do. I think it was Steve Jobs' quote, you don't hire great people and then tell them what to do. You hire great people so they can tell you what to do. I think all I've really done is hire people that are better than me at different things. So if I think she's better than me at that, I'm probably going to hire them. And if you keep on doing that, you'll end up with a great balance of people that are all brilliant at something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Surround yourself with great people and then get out of your own way.
Yes.
Speaking of getting out of my own way, yes. Owen, I'll hand it over to you to ask your favorite final question of the evening.
Yeah, so Cian, tell us, what is something people wouldn't expect to know about you?
Before I found what it is I was going to do with my life, I worked at just about every job you can think of. I worked as a bin man, I worked as a sandwich maker, security guard, laboured for block layers, farmed, a shop assistant. I was a chef for 2 weeks. I guess that's probably the thing, I did not have a single clue what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm still not 100% sure. Maybe that's something that probably not many people know about me.
Brilliant. Okay, well, it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job and you have kind of figured it out.
Far. And not just yet, I think I've still got a way to go.
All right. Well, absolutely. And thank you so much for coming on to the show tonight, Cian.
Really enjoyable.
Wishing your team and your business and your clients nothing but success going forward.
Super. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
That does it for this week, folks, and you can learn more about Cian Prendergast and Ortus in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. So check us out online and subscribe to our weekly Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early stage startup advisor and investor. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a voicemail on moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!